Welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by Michigan State head coach Tom Izzo. And coach, welcome. Have the Izzos had ample lake time this summer?
No, I haven't. But I did have some with my team the last 2 days, and that was fun. I got a little bit on the 4th of July, but hopefully now kids go this weekend because school's over. Hopefully we'll get a few days to go on the beach.
How much harder is it to balance the basketball aspect with family in the current climate of college sports?
Well, everybody talks about the climate, and as you know, my feelings on it. But more importantly, it just is what it is. And what it is your job never ends. Because you used to sign a couple big classes and you were done unless the guy went pro for the most part. And now that barely gets you through the year. So you're doing a lot more. Then you got to do fundraising. Then you got to do other things. So there's just more added to the job. And thank God I'm at an older stage in my career, so I'm not raising kids. Besides doing that, I am starting to raise grandkids, so that's pretty good.
Well, another thing that was pretty good was your team last season. 30 wins, an outright Big Ten regular season title, went all the way to the Elite Eight. I know that you had your sights set on another trip to the Final Four, but as you reflect, how rewarding was last year?
Yeah, John, it was really rewarding because we weren't picked that high, and rightfully so. You guys didn't make a mistake. It was, I think we just kind of, we had a good team. It wasn't maybe my top 20 most talented teams,
right,
but it was maybe my top 5 most together teams. And that's what happens sometimes when you don't have a lot of elite talent. You got everybody together. We played 9-10 guys. We were really good at the free throw line. We were really good defense. We were really good down the stretch. And my bench points was off the charts, guys coming off the bench scoring more. And then Jace Richardson started finding his niche, and he really helped us. And but it was rewarding, put it that way.
Now, as a coach, as you evaluate yourself, how does the feeling of fulfillment after a season like last year, when you truly wrung out the sponge with a team, compare to the fulfillment that you feel when you go to a Final Four or, as you did in 2000, win a national title?
Yeah, that's a good question. I still think there's nothing like winning a championship or going to a Final Four. But if I looked at it from a rewarding state, last year was pretty rewarding because I just had so little locker room problems. I had so little off the court. Academically, we were great. And I had a bunch of guys that got along. And that's hard this day and age because of, so many different moving parts coming in and out of your programs.
I was with you guys in Cleveland last year during the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, and I remember talking to you after one of the games about the depth of your team, and you said sometimes that's not a good thing. I'm curious, now that you went through a year where you had so many capable players, how does it compare having a really deep team versus a team where you have 7 or 8 guys with high usage and defined roles?
Well, what I meant by that is, it's not great because we didn't have an elite player. You usually have, if you have a Miles Bridges or Jaren Jackson or guys like that, or Valentine or Draymond that have grown into that, then there's a separation. We really didn't have that. Jace came on late.
Yeah.
But so that was what the bad news was. But when I look at it, the good news, was really good because those guys really gelled together. And I don't know, I'd like a little more talent and the same gelling. How's that?
No, that would obviously be nice for Michigan State and nice for the Big Ten and college basketball. You and I had a lot of talks during the pandemic about the state of the game, where we were going, and just how we were going to try and stabilize things. Your buddy John Calipari was on this show a couple of weeks ago, and he vehemently stated that if college sports just stabilized the transfer portal and only allowed 1 immediate eligible transfer for each player, that things around that would completely stabilize. Is that a sentiment that you would be an advocate for?
Yeah, I definitely would. John and I talk a lot. I mean, I said the transfer portal is way worse than the NIL, even though who knows how much money you have to come up with. But what the transfer portal does is it gives a lot of middlemen a chance to come in. And what I think is bothering me and my sport the most is the way people are tampering with people throughout the year. And that would eliminate some of that. Like even in the NFL, NBA, you don't tamper with a guy who's got a 4-year contract. You don't even think about it.
Right.
I mean, guys, I went on that rant during the NCAA tournament last year about how could it, why is all the interest now on the portal when it opened, right? I said the portal's been open since September.
Right.
The portal never closes because we have too many dirtbags that are tampering with people and players, and whether it be these like I love when my guys have an NBA agent.
Yeah.
It's the other agents that kill you. And I love when people are up front, but I think the worst thing I see is the tampering, believe it or not. And I think one-time transfer would help that.
Tom, you've taken some transfers and you've plugged them in at Michigan State, but through all of this climate change, you have remained Michigan State, and I think that was reflected in the team you had last season. How meaningful is that to you, given the state of college sports?
Well, I look around the league, and around the country, and Matt Painter is a good friend, even though we're competitors, and they've done it similar. And Shaka Smart has done it pretty well at Marquette, if you ask me, and I'm a big fan of Shaka's too. So, everybody's got to pick and choose their way. But you got a lot of programs right now that are changing 8, 10, 12 players a year.
Yeah.
And, wouldn't be where I want to play. It wouldn't be where I'd want to coach. But it is getting harder. And, we've had a pretty good run of getting players that aren't entitled to. I mean, if you get them from a smaller program, they're actually excited when they get to fly somewhere and things like that. So I think who you get matters, but boy, it's just difficult to try to figure out what is fair. They always talk about what is fair to the player, what's fair to the programs. And the one thing that I'd like to say, John, is it fair to a player? A great quarterback is there, and all of a sudden he stays, but his 2 top receivers leave.
Yeah.
That's not fair to the quarterback.
Right.
So sometimes these guys don't realize they're hurting each other.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. And I think we made some mistakes in letting it get there. And now I think we're too gutless to correct our own mistakes.
Well, let's focus on something that's positive, and that's the on-court product, because despite everything that's going on off the court, the on-court product in college basketball is better than it's been in quite some time. Give me your thoughts on the roster you've put together for 25-26.
Yeah. We've got our mainstays. Colin Carr has gotten a lot better. Jeremy Fears. Carson Cooper has really made some progress, and Jackson Kohler. And that's 4 pretty good mainstays that have played a lot of minutes here. Now it's about adding in the guys. Does a Kurtang, a shooter that we have, really improved? Does it got to be one of our new guys? But I think we, more than anybody but Purdue, maybe, we have a base of our, I wouldn't say starters back, but top 6 or 7 guys. And 2 of those guys are now seniors. And I think that's illegal. I don't think you're allowed to have a senior here.
The question I would say around your team entering the season is, how do you replace the perimeter offense you lost with Jaden Akins and Jace Richardson? Who do you think here in August are the likely candidates to fill that void?
Well, first of all, I think Jeremy's going to shoot it better, but Kurtang is probably my best shooter. And I think he's really going to help us. He's the best pure shooter. Trey, we've got one of our transfers came I get mixed up here, but he came from Birmingham, and that program down there that was just run and gun, and we played him during the year. But
yeah,
I think he's going to help us a lot. But I do think, some of our freshmen could help us. Jordan Scott is a prolific shooter, and he's 6'6", 6'7", and Cam Ward is a beast, and he's been really sharp so far too. So you're right, the perimeter shooting, but I think some guys have gotten better. Cone Carr's gotten better. I think some guys got to step up. I mean, that's what happens. When you don't go out and just get a guy or get a bunch of guys that have already proven themselves, sometimes freshmen or red shirts or freshmen last year that now move up to sophomore year. I mean, that is what it's all about. That's the way it used to be all the time. You had to improve your players.
Yeah.
And I still like doing that personally.
I think back to the Auburn game, and I know that wasn't Michigan State's best game, but somebody who truly shined in that game was Jackson Kohler. He had a double-double against Auburn. Could his performance against Auburn be maybe a preview of what he might look like in a more featured role this season for Michigan State?
Yeah, Kohler and Cooper have really had a hell of a summer, and he can shoot it and he can score it down low, and he did have a good game. I think we went 3 or 4 for 23 from the three-point line with our two players, Holloman and Aiken. So that hurt us. We didn't make shots, and they were good, and they deserved to move on. But I think we hung in there, and I think some of that was Kohler, and I think he's going to be a very, very good player for us.
Now, you've never ducked anybody with your non-conference schedule, but big brands again on the slate. Kentucky in the Champions Classic at the Garden, Carolina Thanksgiving Day in Florida. And then I think this is a little bit unique. You're going to have 2 big non-conference games on campus, Duke and Arkansas. How much different of a feel is it to get those games in East Lansing?
I thought you were a friend, John. You're trying to ruin my summer or what? You didn't have to bring that up. We had Duke in a game that was coming back from a couple of years ago. When we had Tournament of Champions we had to play at Duke because of the COVID stuff.
Yep.
Well, that was a return game. And then John called me this summer and wanted to play a home and home. He must hope I'm down a little bit or something because, John, he'll never play on the road.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be great. I think it'll be great for us. And then Kentucky, how good they are, and that's in Madison Square Garden, and Carolina down in Florida is Thanksgiving Day because, it follows football, and everything. So it'll be a good time. So I'm did I bite off more than I can chew? I do that a lot. I mean, we've had years where I've gone 2-6 in the start and still made it to the tournament and almost won the league. So this one is going to be tough, but I'm really looking forward to it.
What was it like going through an 18-team Big Ten schedule with opponents in the Pacific time zone?
Yeah, it was different. We didn't do too well out there. We got beat at the buzzer by UCLA and I think by 5 or 6 by USC. But I mean, it was good. It was fairer for us than probably them. They had to make more trips, so no complaints there. I got a chance to see Magic, and he came over to the hotel, spoke to our alums, our team. That was good. I didn't really enjoy the weather that much because I was working, but other than that, it was good. It was fine. It's different going from one side of the country to the other. You come back, and that's what's hard. But at the same time, it's the same for everybody, so I got no complaints.
This is something I wonder about when it comes to the Big Ten, because you've been in the Big Ten tournament title game so many times, and it's the last game before the selection show on CBS. When you play in that game and you go through that late on Sunday afternoon, do you find your team isn't as fresh for the first game in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it all depends when it is. I mean, one year we played on that late game, and then we were shipped out to Arizona, I think it was, or somewhere, time zones, and it was Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah.
We've been lucky. A lot of times it's been Friday, Sunday. When it's that, I don't think there's any big deal. But when it's Thursday and you're going time zones, that can make it a little tough.
You in the Elite Eight have had so many epic games, wins, tough losses, all of it. You've been through all of it. But there's been multiple times now where you have had to take on an opponent that had a distinct geographic advantage. UConn in 2014, Auburn last year. How difficult is it to endure that in the Elite Eight?
Well, in the Elite Eight we did, and then we even had North Carolina and Duke in the second round, in their backyard. So we played a lot of people in their backyard. Now, we won a national championship playing in our backyard.
Right.
But I played in somebody else's backyard a lot more than I played in ours. And, it makes a difference. But I think that's the advantage of playing in the Big Ten. It's a sold-out arena, as you know, every place you go. Last year, we had a lot of people in Atlanta, but not as many as Auburn had because it was an hour away or whatever. But I don't have a problem with that. I think it's hard enough to select everybody. I have no issues with that. I just I think we got to do a better job of getting more games close to home.
You said after you lost to Carolina in 2024, and you were defiant in your post-game press conference, you said, I'm going to do everything I can to go on a deeper run in this tournament, or I'm going to die trying. After winning 30 games last year and going all the way to the Elite Eight, are you even re-energized more to go further in the future?
I really am, John. I really am. And, lucky I backed my words there because we did go farther. And but I think, we're just trying to do it a little different. That's all. And I feel good about that. I think I still think in sports, especially team sports, camaraderie, culture, all those things matter. And we're trying to thrive off that, which is what I've done since the day I started here. So I probably did less complaining last year. I don't like the current system. I've made no bones about it. But the difference is there's not a football or basketball coach that likes it.
Right.
It's just some are at the stage of their career where they can't say it. I can say it. It doesn't really change anything. It doesn't make me feel better, but it is more difficult. I'm just waiting until people find out it's going to be more difficult for the players.
Right.
That's when it'll change, as they go on through life and go to 4 different schools and never have a place to go home to. That's going to be a ways down the road that I probably won't be here, and hell, it might even take till you won't be there. But other than that, I'm fine with it. I did less complaining last year and just kind of worried about my team, and it worked out pretty well.
Well, and the unique thing about covering your team is I know you plug in a transfer here and there. You got the kid from Samford, Trey Ford. You got Sapala, obviously, in the past to plug some holes up front. But you still have Michigan State type feels around your program, and that's obviously directly correlated to guys like Jeremy Fears and Cone Carr. And evaluating your roster, for you guys to be vintage Michigan State, they got to play like all Big Ten players this year. What type of a jump do you foresee for Jeremy Fears and Cone Carr?
Well, I think those two are going to make the biggest jumps, although Carson Cooper has made a big one. Jackson was already getting there, as you said. But there is no question that that's what college sports used to be all about. You develop in a program, you get better. Mark D'Antoni, I was talking to him, our old football coach, and that's all he did. He took 3- and 4-star guys, made them better, and had some incredible runs. So, will it still work when people can absolutely load up on talent? If you look last year, and I'm sure you did because you're pretty astute in what you do, it wasn't always the teams with the most talent that win. It's the best teams that win.
Yeah.
And somewhere there's a happy medium. I don't think you can do what we did last year on a regular basis, but I don't think necessarily if you don't have culture and chemistry and camaraderie, I don't think you win big. I think you win games. I don't think you win championships.
Tom, I've been asking this question to a lot of coaches because I'm fascinated by it. In doing this now as long as I have, 20 years, coaches always harp on rough and difficult losses much more than they celebrate great wins. For Tom Izzo, give me one difficult loss that sticks with you throughout your career, and give me one win that was pure elation, and you can't give any that happened in the Final Four.
Okay. They were both Elite Eight games. We got beat by UConn in Madison Square Garden. We had a lead at halftime, and we just didn't play well. They did. That was one of the fewer times I lost to a worse seed.
Yep.
And that they went on to win a national championship.
Yeah.
The second one was the win was against Duke in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Zion there. I had a couple of those kind of wins. Louisville was the number one overall. Yep. Duke. But that one, because I've always been a respect Mike and their program, and that was a day I'll never forget. Magic gave the pregame speech, and I guess I should have used him last year. Now that I think about it.
Final thing, we've talked a lot about your roster. You're coming off a great year where you won the Big Ten outright. What has to happen between now and late February, March for Michigan State, just like it was last year, to be a high seed in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah. You're right, boy. Last year, to think that we won the league by 3 games, I don't think ever that happened to me. And the league was deep, and we had a lot more teams we added, like Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA. But I think we got to continue to get better. If we're as good as we are right now, we won't be there. But I think we are getting better, and I think we will get better. And I think then, as you said, the veterans got to come along. Veterans have been there. They've done this. Some of those guys have been through the wars. We were talking at my beach house the other day. I had them all out there, and we were talking about some of the things they went through. Some of the seniors went through the aircraft carrier. Yep. Some guys went through, what happened when we lost in the tournament. Some went through, of course, what happened last year. And we're just explaining it to the freshmen or the new guys. That's what's cool about having some veterans on your team is a player-coach team is usually better than a coach-coach team. And when the players can explain those things, it really matters. So we got a long way to go, John, but that schedule should let us know whether we're in trouble or deep trouble early. But if we get through that, we're ready to see if we can be a little different and make another run.
Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, and Arkansas on top of the Big Ten. Tom Izzo wouldn't have it any other way. Coach, appreciate a couple minutes. Know how busy you are. And as always, look forward to staying connected with you along the way.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the job you do. You do your homework. That's one thing I'll say about you. You do your homework, and that's why you lasted 20 years. Got a good culture there. See you, John.
Appreciate it. That's Michigan State head coach Tom Izzo. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.